So he'd be driving, and where would be the record player?
In front of the passenger seat.
Right.
So I was in charge of putting feeding the records in and taking them out and turning them over.
And what if we went over a bump or something?
Well, I don't remember it skipping.
Yeah.
I mean, it must have done occasionally.
Found it.
Amazing.
Yeah. Mike Lindup's dad. So last time I saw you, we were talking about Changes 1
Yes.
and...
Changes 2.
You're confused.
Yeah, Changes 2 is the album came out last year.
That's the one that came out last year, but okay. And one of the tracks was released by Louis Vega, which was
Time to Let Go.
Time to Let Go, which was a big tune, which is great when they kind of had take on another life elsewhere. Did someone remix that?
Yeah, Louis remixed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he did 2 different versions of it.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. The best moment with Louis, was when I was interviewing Mark King and Louis about before pandemic, and Louis says to Mark King, "I love the vocals on Star Child."
Yeah.
And then Mark King said, "Actually, no, that was Mike Lindup."
Yeah.
Which is great, funny moment. Funny, it's just a great moment about. Anyway, Mike Lindup, hello. Good to see you. Thank you so much for doing a triology.
My pleasure.
That's so great. You've bought a beautiful trio. Now, it's funny because you basically called me up recently. You sent me a message and you said, "Oh, I like this triology series." And we were looking for a legend who could kind of just close our series, because we've done 3 already. Emily Francis, Amaro Freitas,
Yes.
Florian Pellissier. And so we were waiting for the sort of, the cherry on the top. And you called me and you said, "I've got a trio."
Well, that's because when you last interviewed me, you said, "I'm going to be getting one of those new Mk8 Rhodes in, and maybe I'll start doing some live sessions." And, that sort of dropped with me, and I thought, okay, I'll take you up on that when it comes in.
And you've got a Mk8, you've got number 42.
I've got number 42, yes. Dan Goldman, bless him, at Rhodes, saved it because, I was obviously interested. And obviously it's a big investment as well. And I had my sort of trusty Mark Ron Dynamite Rhodes since 1982 that was still going on stage. And but I fancied one of the new ones for lots of reasons. And so it came, and the wonderful thing about it is that the band and the front of house engineers all say how great it sounds. And they say, "I heard you playing some stuff tonight. That was amazing." And I said, "I've been playing that same stuff for exactly the same for 20 years, but you're only just hearing it now because of the clarity of the instrument." So, that's a huge bonus.
Well, you're the first one who's done this series with us who actually already has one of these Mk8s. So you could, I think Florian, when he was playing with it, he was certainly getting into the effects and working it.
Yeah, so you can real deep dive in it. I mean, with the distortion and then with the kind of the wah and the auto wah, and then of course all the chorus and the phase and the built-in delay is fantastic. I've been using that on with Level 42 and Hot Water, because I used to drag my old Roland chorus echo out a few tours ago. Tape delay, which was great, but of course it's analog and needs maintenance and so on. And the wonderful thing about having all the effects built in is they're designed and they're really clean and they sound great in stereo, and it's just there at your fingertips.
So you've been touring with Level 42. It was meant to be a kind of quiet year.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's been like a bit. We do festivals every summer and then we do a big autumn tour every 2 years, and this is a non-touring year. But there's been a bit of creep coming in, where we do a London show on the non-touring year, then a London show and maybe a couple of others. And this year it was like a London show and Cancun and Santiago in Chile and Japan and Singapore. So it really feels like we've been on tour.
And does it feel like a renaissance a little bit? I mean, I know Level 42, I know you took time off, but Level 42 never really went away. It had the time when I first was introduced to you as a young 15-year-old super fan. I bought this record here because this is the first record, the first promo I ever sort of received from Andy Soika at Elite, and it was a double A side. Well, I don't know if it was a double A side, but it had Level 42, Sandstorm on one side, and Powerline Journey 2, which goes. And how does Sandstorm go?
Sandstorm, I can't remember.
I love it. But yeah, this was the first record I received, and I used to come and see you. I mean, I've told you this before. Before I was at school, and we'd go to Guildford. I'd go and see you at the Fairfield Halls. I think I saw Level 42 double figures by the time I was 17, for sure. I used to be that kid who'd be waiting outside the changing room to see if I could get a glance of you guys.
I know, because we were like, well, of course, you grew up reading the tabloids and, you know, you get into rock and roll and then, you know, the world is your oyster. And if you're a young man, you know, the whole story about musicians starting to play an instrument because they hopefully attract someone of the opposite sex. And so we were kind of, after the show, we're going, yeah, hopefully there'll be some girls instead of, but it's always blokes going, oh, what strings do you use? What keyboards do you play? And so on.
I was at the front of the queue just seeing if they had any more white labels to hand out. I wasn't even into the instruments, but I thought it was amazing. And you know, you definitely sort of, you know, brought a lot through. And you were a band that started off as part of a movement, which was kind of the movement I attached myself to, which was kind of Brit funk, alongside groups like Freeze and Light of the World and Second Image and UK Players, all these groups. And that's kind of, I felt associated to that. I really believed in it. Went to see all the groups at the Rainbow in Victoria, or the venue in Victoria, or the Rainbow in Finsbury Park.
Yeah.
And then you, as a group, you know, going from Elite Records, which was that label, to being signed by Polydor, and then having sort of slowly coming out of that and becoming a global entity of making amazing pop songs. And you know, you were like a stadium rock band touring America, right, and doing like 8 shows in a row at Wembley Arena and stuff like that. So, an incredible band, an incredible career. And how does it feel looking back on it now? And are you enjoying this renaissance? Are you feeling a renaissance?
Yeah, I think I've said we're enjoying ourselves, I think, more now on stage than we ever did before. I mean, you know, it's Mark and myself from the original band, but there's so much kind of joy in the fact that we can just think, hey, we wrote these songs years ago with no idea, you know, you just don't know what's going to happen. The success happened, the sort of big success of the 80s, but now it's almost like it's sweeter because it's the live thing that's just grown and grown. As the older we get, more people seem to want to, you know, book us to do, you know, jazz festivals in all kind of places. And, you know, next year's World Machine 40th anniversary tour sold out sort of very shortly after it went on sale, which is incredible, you know, given we're, you know, 65 and 66. You know, luckily we can still sing and we can still play and we can still, you know, put on a really good live show. And as I said to you before, thank God you can't put that into a bottle because, you know, it's something you have to be there to actually experience. Yeah,
because we were talking about, you know, AI, possibilities of AI affecting the industry and music, but you know, with live, apart from ABBA, it's not something that...
I'm not worried about it. I mean, you know, I think, to me, the principle of AI is that it learns from what is existing. But, you know, it doesn't create anything new. It might put combinations of existing things together. But as a composer, I don't have any fear. And as a live artist, I don't, because, I mean, why would you not want to go and see the live band there in person? Because the energy that happens in a live gig is something that just can't be replicated.
And of course, when you're out with Level 42, it's quite a big unit. There's horns. There's quite a few of you on the road. Whereas today it's Michael Lindup in a trio. Tell us about the unit. And you know, this is great. I mean, I'd love to hear this travelling around. Could that be a problem with Level 42? Is there a...
No, not at all. You know, it's like a different hat that I wear. I would love to be able to go out and do more live gigs because I don't go out, you know, this is like I do 1 gig a year at the moment and I'd love to do loads more gigs, but I'm doing a big band, you know, at Union Chapel. I'd love to do something that is, you know, much more easy to take on the road, and a trio would be fantastic. It means, of course, you have to rearrange everything. And you know, no bells and whistles and stuff like that, but there's a kind of beauty in it. I've really enjoyed the kind of challenge of having to sort of try and arrange everything for this trio thing, because it really keeps you on your toes.
And tell me about the bands you've got today.
So this is Yolanda Charles on bass, fantastic. I mean, I started working with Yolanda, I did an EP called On The One in 2008, and she played fantastic on that. And she's done the few solo shows I've done. She's been the first call because she's just amazing. She's got such a amazing liquid groove and understanding of where I'm coming from. You know, she's got her own band. She's got an amazing band called Project PH, which is It's a new album that's just come out, and she wants to get out live with that unit. And so I love Yolanda, and she recommended the drummer. So I said, are there any kind of, you know, youngish, you know, for me anyway, you know, drummers around that are like really solid? Because I'm kind of spoiled by Phil Gould, if you like, and the fact that the grooves that he laid down were just so solid, and I was really looking for that. And Yolanda said, well, there's this guy John Sam, I just did a gig with him, and he was great, and he's just the business. And they lock in together, which is just what you need, you know, for a rhythm section. And John's brother plays bass, and so they've got a band together called Son of Sam, and so they go out, and they've got, I think, a hip-hop album coming out soon. So, yeah. That's the band.
They sound great. And so you've done 4 songs, or you're going to do 4 songs.
Yes.
And first time in the Triology that we're actually getting the mic out for the voice to be part of the Triology. So you're singing as well.
Yes.
Tell us about the material you're going to be doing today.
Well, we're going to do, so from the Changes 2 album, we're doing Time to Let Go, and again, sort of, you know, rearranged. And we're doing a song called Fragile Heart, which is kind of more a kind of guitar-y acoustic thing, except I'm playing it on the Rhodes, and actually wrote it on a keyboard, so it actually works quite well. I'm doing my new single, Perplexity, which is a kind of instrumental. I was actually thinking about my dad when I was playing it today, because I think it might be the sort of stuff that he would have dug, as it were, if he were still alive. And then you asked for a kind of bonus track cover version, so I chose Nature Boy, the George Benson arrangement, because it's one of my favourite arrangements and versions of it.
I've heard you warming up early on with it. It sounds incredible. So that's 4 beautiful pieces from Mike Lindup today, about to come out as part of our Triology.
don't need it all. The much inside of us. Time to let go, we don't need it all. The world already has so much to offer us. So much to offer
Tell us a little bit about your dad, actually, because I did bring this record in, and from the last time I saw you, and I realised that he is on a lot of records that would be associated with sort of what they call library music.
Yeah.
And, you know, the sleeve notes on here are by John Dankworth, so it kind of is really top players, studio players, and jazz. What did he play, and what, you know, what was his influence for you?
Well, I mean, so he came up through the kind of jazz scene. He played alto, and I think what happened, as far as I understand, is he started doing arrangements for whatever bands that he was around, and he got a reputation as being a really good jazz arranger. And some years afterwards, he collaborated with John Dankworth. I think John Dankworth sort of saw his talent and took him under his wing, and so he began arranging with John, and then getting involved in doing, you know, TV themes as well as library music, and then he got into film scores, and he did the arrangements for the Muppet Show when the star comes on the Muppet Show and does his number with Kermit or Miss Piggy. He did the arrangements for that for the Jack Parnell Orchestra.
So was some of that done here then in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, so Dad, I mean, if I ever meet kind of older jazz players, they'll often sort of say, your surname's Lindup, are you related to Dave Lindup? Because they know his arrangements, and that's his kind of reputation as being a really great arranger. But this was kind of his solo project. And I remember me and my sister, when we were young, we'd go and visit him, and he'd put it on the record player, and me and my sister would make up kind of choreograph story ballet things, telling the story of each of the songs or each of the tunes on the album.
Did he ever hear Level 42?
Yes, he did.
And what did he think of your Brit funk at the time?
Well, I think he enjoyed it. I mean, I remember he came, because he's from Worthing, so the family on my dad's side all kind of came from that part of the world. So he came to Worthing Civic Hall or something like that in about 1983, I think. And I don't think there were very many people in the audience actually at that gig, but he really enjoyed it. And later on we collaborated. He did a library session and he asked me to write a couple of tunes for it. And he wanted Mark to play on it. So I got Mark King and Dominic Miller, and we went into this session in Lansdowne Road, you know, one of the great old studios no longer with us. And I remember there were all the sort of top session guys who were fantastic readers. I'm a terrible reader. Mark doesn't read. Dominic reads a bit. But I remember Mark kind of glaring at me saying, you didn't tell me, you know, what key is this in? I'm like shouting B, E, A as we're kind of going through, and these top line guys are going, oh, these young guys, they don't know what they're doing.
Wow. What about your mum? What was her role for you? And
well, she was a singer, songwriter, an actor, and, you know, the house I grew up in, you know, my mum, you know, was like the sitting room was her rehearsal room. So there were guitars, there were pianos, there were hand drums, there was a reel-to-reel tape recorder, there was the radiogram with quite an eclectic record collection. And, you know, I grew up listening to Bossa Nova, Stan Getz and Astor Gilberto. My dad had a record player in his Alfa Romeo, like that would play, you know, EPs with the center knocked out. And I mean, I thought it was normal. I had no idea how kind of unusual it was.
An Alfa Romeo car? Which
An Alfa
one?
Romeo.
Do you remember which one?
It was a Giulia Sprint.
Wow.
And it was, I think it was an aftermarket Philips, you know, record player that you could put, it was like really floppy, and you'd stick in this, you know, 45-inch EP with the hole knocked out, and there was like Nat King Cole singing the songs of My Fair Lady, arranged by Nelson Riddle, Jerry Mulligan, Concert Jazz Band, Astrid Gilberto, you know, that album that Marty Page, you know, arranged for. And that was the soundtrack driving down to my grandparents'.
So hang on, where would so he'd be driving, and where would be the record player be?
In front of the passenger seat.
Right, so
I was in charge of putting feeding the records in and taking them out and turning them over.
And
and
what
all
if
of
you
that.
went over a bump or something?
Well, I don't remember it skipping.
Yeah.
I mean, it must have done occasionally, but I have no memory of
That
it
is
skipping.
incredible. I've never seen that. We got to find someone who's got that one. I think we need. I just want to see an image of it.
I know. I think if you look online, you might see some pictures of it. I think there are a couple of pictures because I was talking to one of the guys in the band about it.
Wow.
But you were asking about my mum, and you know, my mum, because she sung, she would be singing, you know, a lot in the house. And so I kind of grew up with her singing. We had a parrot. She'd sing with the parrot. She tried to teach the parrot to sing Climb Every Mountain, which she didn't quite get, but you know, it would kind of approximate the and then of course Mum was a guitarist, but she wasn't, you know, she could sort of play basically. I hope I'm not insulting her, but she would always get an accompanist in to sort of do kind of the twiddly bits, as she called it. So there were guitarists and other folk musicians, because she got involved in the folk scene and got on Hallelujah and the TV programs to do with that, which was big in the 60s. So all these musicians were coming in and out of the house, and you know, it was just like normal, and that's kind of what I grew up with.
Amazing. Siblings?
I've got a sister, yeah.
Music?
She took lessons but decided that wasn't her career, so you know, she learnt the cello, she had singing lessons, but now she, you know, she's worked for different companies. She works for Surrey Police at the moment. So but she loves music. She's still got a really good singing voice. She can sing really good tunes, and she, you know, if I play my stuff to her, I always get a good sort of, you know, good critique.
There's a green hill buried under winter, 40 years or more of fallen snow, layer upon layer of protection, no way that the grass will ever grow. Comet tail now flaring in the night sky, last seen 1500 years ago. An opportunity once in a lifetime, a chance to change the way the story goes. I hear the call to give it all and go beyond where it's easy, digging deep, losing sleep to find the truth within. Crazy hope in a fragile heart, talk away the pain, walk beside me once again. Crazy love, won't you melt my heart, return this dust to dream. Resurrect the part that's been forgotten, the part that I abandoned long ago. Lead her to the secret hills she's never climbed before. Let her footprints melt away the snow. Show her all the deep forbidden places. Show her where you've been afraid to go. Open up the door to where no one has been before. Let her footprints melt away the snow. Your shining soul became my goal, to go beyond where it's easy. Take the fall and give it all to find the truth within. Crazy hole in a fragile heart, silver. Help us find the way we need to go. Lead us to that secret hill we've never climbed before. Let our footprints melt away the snow. Southern winds return in all your glory. In your wake again the grass will grow. Lead us to the secret hill we've never climbed before. Let our footprints melt away the snow, melt away the snow.
So there's a myth of Level 42 that you'd go on the road and that Mark King, who was into cars, would always drive back up. This is a myth. Would drive back to the Isle of Wight after shows because, you know, he.
Well,
and
that part of the myth is true.
Right.
I mean, I think I was more into cars than Mark was, although Mark did have a couple of nice Aston Martins for a while.
Right.
But then he kind of got his fingers burnt a bit and he thought, no, that's not for me. But he was very keen to go home to the Isle of Wight, and often, you know, because of the ferries, you know, it's because you can only get to the island if you catch the last ferry. So often he'd be like, the car would be sort of, tour manager would start it up and he'd sort of leap off the stage and jump into his Range Rover and bomb down to try and get to the last ferry and hope it wasn't cancelled or rescheduled.
Wow. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because obviously distance and travel isn't such a massive deal, wasn't for him. And when I last saw you, you were telling me that you'd moved to far north of Scotland.
Yeah.
So that's where you live now?
I live, yeah. So I live in the Midwest of Argyll, and it's a long way to London, and I'm commuting, and it's not easy.
So how did you get to here from there? What was your trip today?
Well,
It took a couple of days.
I drove because I had needed to bring some gear with me because I've got a gig, but normally I get on the train, so so it's 12 miles from my house to the nearest town. I park the car, I get the bus, and I get the bus to Glasgow, which is 2 hours 40 minutes, and then I normally get the train to Euston, which is 5 hours. So it basically takes a whole day.
Yeah, but it's worth it.
It's worth it because it's so beautiful up there, and I've had that place for years, and I love the community actually, and I love the scenery, you know, I love the wildlife, and I love the peace and tranquility. But, you know, I still get my fix of London because I come down here for either work or to see my family. And, you know, my mum recently passed away, but I used to come and visit her and so on. So I can enjoy London as a visitor and know that I don't have to put up with the constant traffic jams and sirens. I can sort of just dip in and out of it.
Wow. So basically you're on this continuous tour with Level 42, even if it's a semi-quiet year. You've got all the Mike Lindup stuff happening.
Yeah.
And so you go back home in the breaks, maybe half the time on the road, half the time at home?
It's more like 75-25 typically. I'm 75% at home and 25% on the road. You know, we don't do the huge long tours that we used to do in the 80s.
And what does being at home in that tranquility do for your creative process?
It's a place to kind of consolidate. It's also, I mean, I have a keyboard there. I don't have a real piano. I want to get a real piano again, but I've got a really nice Roland digital one. But it's where I can improvise and work on ideas. And, you know, the voice memo is my friend now. It used to be a recording Walkman back in the day, but I carry it everywhere, and if I get an idea, which the ideas can strike in the most mundane circumstances and often when you're least expecting it, and often when I'm traveling. But then actually turning those ideas into something is when I need to sit down and kind of work at it. So that's what I do up in Scotland. I got like a, you know, home studio, if you like. Basically a computer and some keyboards and a microphone. And but then when I want to actually record, then I'll come down and I'll work with like Mike and Tony, for example, in Wood Green, because I need to have people around me when
Mike Pato?
Mike Pato and Tony Economidis.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's something about, I mean, coming up with ideas is one thing, but actually doing like a vocal performance or doing keyboard takes and so on, I need someone else to kind of be there to sort of bounce off and say, Mike, try this, or, you know, you can do that better, or what about this approach, and that kind of thing.
So you manifest with them?
I do. We manifest together.
We were talking about that word earlier. So, and you got this big band show at Union Chapel, which will have gone by the time we watch this, but that's sort of a bit out of the blue as well. Or how much time did that take to?
Well, it was great because I did at the end of 2023 I did the Jazz Cafe, and it was the first time to play the Changes 2 stuff live, and it was, to be honest, it was like a magical concert. It was just one of those things where the feeling in the audience, they so enjoyed hearing the music live, and I got that straight away, and I so enjoyed it. And you know, the guests on the album, Tony Monrell came down, John Culshaw came down, and at Union Chapel, you know, Omar came down as well. So all the guests on the album were in the gig, which was just brilliant. And
an orchestra as well, big band.
No, but just you know, I've got Yolanda and John from the session, and then 2 backing vocals. I've got Carolina Lellis, who sang on Perplexity, and Shelley Nelson on vocals. Got Alex Hutchings on guitar, who played on the album and has done several of my live things. So it's a really, really good band. I'd love to take that band everywhere, but you know, it kind of doesn't make sense economically.
Can't you warm up for Level 42?
No, I mean, Mark kind of sort of said in so many words that, you know, that Level 42 needs to be its own thing.
Yeah.
And
I think he's right.
I do too.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, it's like it's another entity.
It's another entity. Brilliant. Well, listen, Mike, I love you. I love everything you've done. You've been a hugely important part of my upbringing, my culture.
Oh, thank you.
A lot was manifested on those first trips. That record there, Sandstorms. It's such a pleasure having you here, and can't wait to hear what you come up to and what we hear today in the studio.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Charles.
Cheers. Strange enchanted boy, though he wandered very far, very far.